Welcome to the Waiting List podcast. Tell us the story.
It's like many things you start building from scratch.
And then I'm like, wait, I really do like watches because
You've seen so many watches that makes you excited.
I think I really do like watches.
Yeah. I think it's a great way to see if you are a watch enthusiast.
Welcome everybody to this episode of the Waiting List podcast. You're joined with me, Alex, and my co-host, Hon Ng.
And me.
And Daniel, yeah, we can't forget about you. And we're joined with my good friend, Hon, and you can find him at HK Watch Guy. So thank you, Hon, for coming.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on the weekend.
Yeah, no, pleasure.
So Hon is one of those guys, right, that is just like everyone gets along with. You know, he's all those yummy words like kind, generous, and all that sort of things.
Good looking,
smart, and intelligent. And I'm really excited to kind of hear more about his story. You know, like me, Hon also studied in the UK. So the question is, what made you transfer to Hong Kong?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate you having me here on a rainy Saturday, kind of half morning. Yeah, what made me go from UK to Hong Kong? I think you're Daniel and Alex. You're both from the UK originally, right?
Yep.
So there was always these calendars. You remember calendars that you get sent with pictures of Hong Kong, and there's always these fireworks in the background, right? So
The takeaway ones.
The takeaway ones.
Yeah. I can't remember those. Yeah.
So I grew up with those because my family were in the takeaway restaurant business.
Are you actually from the UK?
Yeah. Yeah. I was
where-
born in
whereabouts?
Belgium, actually.
Where?
Whereabouts?
Yeah.
Milton Keynes.
Oh,
I live in
okay.
Milton
Roundabout
Keynes.
Yeah, did
Mayhem
you?
place.
Yeah.
Roundabout Mayhem place.
That's right.
Yeah, and everything's the same color.
That's right. And lots of concrete cows.
Did you go to the Escape
I did.
with the snowboarding? Yeah.
I did.
That's at the centre.
Yes. City centre.
City centre, yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
We're not
it
really
used to be-
selling ourselves there. If anybody goes there, they're going to think, well, yeah, not good stuff.
It's actually not bad. Whenever I go back, I always think, wouldn't it be nice to live here, actually?
Okay.
Nope.
No, it's not bad. It's not that bad. It's not that bad.
If it was 30 minutes closer to London, I think it would be decent.
I used to live in Northampton.
Oh, very
so
close
really
to me.
close, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was shit.
Yeah.
Like Northampton and that area.
You had the Grosvenor Centre or something.
Yeah, that was really bad.
That was bad.
Yeah, that was bad. Yeah, that goes
Everyone
to
from
new
Northampton
depths.
used to come to Milton
New
Keynes.
depths there. We're going plunging into new depths.
This is great. I can't remember. Oh, the question, yeah.
No, it's okay. So
calendars.
Yeah, calendars. Then you moved to
Hong Kong, and my family from Hong Kong. So I always thought, yeah, one day I'll be back in Hong Kong or go to Hong Kong to work.
Okay, and could you, now you want to, share your story with like Uber, because originally you was practicing law, and it's quite a top law firm. I'm allowed to say the name, was it?
Yeah, go, yeah.
Because Latham & Watkins is actually one of the top Wall Street law firms out there.
Yeah.
So that kind of transition from that to Uber,
Yeah.
how did you kind of feel about that?
It was interesting because I don't know, I went through the conveyor belt of studying, getting a job, and you just go through the motions, right? So I worked for a top London-based firm initially, and then went to a top US firm, and then as you go along that journey, you change a little bit, and it's definitely not like Suits where every day is flash cars and fancy watches and stuff. It's really hard work.
I thought everything on Suits was real. Like, do you not win every single case?
Yeah, we do. Of course we do. Of course
You know
we do.
what? You're not really selling it because you do look like suited and booted with like a
Oh,
nice
really?
watch. Yeah. You're really playing it up, if anything.
Well, fake it until you make it, right? No, I think actually Suits was interesting
Yeah.
because I did watch the first 2 seasons religiously, and
Yeah.
they actually did quite well in portraying work. So who's
the secretary is that hot, and
yeah, there are hot secretaries around. Actually, many. Actually, in the first firm I worked in,
Yeah.
Herbert Smith, I can
Yeah.
name the name. They had trainee secretaries. So
Are they even hotter?
yes.
Fantastic.
So it used to come in 25
Yeah.
of them every year.
Yeah.
Sorry, we should.
Digressing, sorry.
Digressing.
Who's counting?
Okay, so the transition to like Uber, so like you mentioned, being in legal and then going into Uber, what was the the main thought behind it?
The main thought was just doing something different and impactful. So I realized that the work in law firm is great, but the only real thing is that you get paid well. You don't really get job satisfaction, and so I just thought this is the time, if any, to do it, and so I made the jump.
Now, because the legal profession is very black and white. You're trying to do things in a legality way, should we say? But Uber is kind of operating grey. So, did that kind of conflict with some of your operating principles and your profession?
It's a really good question. Definitely made me think differently. So I think if I look back when I first started, I'm definitely a different type of person, different lawyer, and I would say a better lawyer actually. So, you guys have businesses and interests, right? You don't hire a lawyer to tell you what the law is. You tell them, you hire them to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And that is what I realized very quickly, that my job wasn't to tell the company or whoever it was, here's 5 things you need to know. It's what's the answer? How do you get from A to B?
Yeah, quickly.
Yeah.
Quickly. Yeah.
And
So that's for me the biggest mindset change. I
Okay.
think.
So you was operating as a legal counsel for Uber, I'm assuming, but then recently you've changed to head of business development for Hong Kong and Taiwan. So how did you change from, again, operating from the legal side, which you're practicing, straight to like the business development side?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think the best things in life come naturally, I think, when you're not forcing it. And that just came naturally because I was working with the business guys a lot. So we're hand in hand on deals. You might not know that we do deals. We do quite a lot of deals actually. And so some of them are big, some of them are small, some of them are medium sized. So yeah, just working with them closely. And eventually, you look at each other and you're like, well, you may as well just come and join our team because you're doing it already.
Yeah.
So
That's
it just
a
came
really
there
cool-
very naturally. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine that one. Because, with Uber, you're not just involved with, just say, the transportation of people. You're involved with many new ventures. So I'm actually quite excited to hear some of those projects that you're working on.
Yep. So food delivery, obviously we've just kind of starting to recover from COVID-19, right? And food delivery has really been impacted in a positive way. I think Hong Kong's interesting, right? Because we're sitting here in Hong Kong and it's so easy to get food. You just go downstairs and you get really good food.
Yeah.
But outside of Hong Kong, let's say UK, right? As an example, it's not that easy actually. You come out the house and there's nothing.
Yeah.
So food delivery as a consumer behavior hasn't been a thing, and I think COVID-19 has really focused minds on how do I get food when I'm stuck at home.
Yeah.
And obviously people start downloading apps, and that's the biggest friction point for apps like ours, which is changing people's behavior.
Yeah.
And we normally pay for it. We normally incentivize people to do it. So this has been like, in a way, a very positive impact on our business. So it's gone, percentage-wise, I think we've increased our business, 2 or 3-fold, like 100%, 200%. So, things are changing. So now the challenge is how do we keep people, ordering?
Yeah, I was just wondering that. I mean, pre-COVID it is about how do you change people's behavior to get used to ordering on the app, right? So then post-COVID, how are you guys going to deal with people going back to their normal lives, going to buy food themselves?
It's a really good question. I think there are some product changes that we're thinking about. So I think, take example, Hong Kong TV Mall. I think they've done quite a good job in kind of bringing out things like, health products and, your day-to-day cosmetic needs and whatnot, and even groceries.
Yeah.
And I think that if we can deliver takeaway food,
Yeah.
there's nothing stopping us from delivering other things.
Yeah.
And
I
so
would
we
love
are, looking at that and seeing where that goes.
a pack of cotton buds, please.
Drugs.
That's actually quite good.
Drugs.
No, 'cause-
Pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
I mean,
Headache pills, that kind of stuff.
we had a small idea about this. We was think I'm allowed to share this one.
Yeah,
That
sure.
you once said that you would love to have a private service where I had to make a phone call to the airline business when the COVID situation happened, and I had to stay on the line for an hour. I would much happily
Such a
pay
good
someone
idea,
for
yeah.
$100 and say, look,
To waste that hour.
Yeah.
not to waste that hour, but to support me anyway. I'm sure there's people out there don't really have anything to do anyway.
Dude,
And-
they have this in
Bit
China,
harsh.
by the way,
Do
where there's this spicy fish called what is it called? Sichuan fish. 水煮鱼,
水煮鱼,
yeah,
mm.
it's called tire. I looked at it. Okay, waiting time minimum 1 hour. So you can get somebody to go line up there for me for 1 hour, and then when it's closer to me, I come back.
They have that in China.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Haiti.
Yeah, I know that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so part of their marketing is that it's a bit like luxury. They make you wait. They make you wait for, on average, 1 hour to 2 hours. and obviously no one's going to wait. So you have to make that decision. And normally it's like office girls, right? Like that office ladies, I should say, that want that drink because it's packaged, in this very colorful way, and very photogenic. So when it comes to 12 o'clock, they're actually ordering it down at 10 o'clock. And then you've got people that are queuing and getting that thing and then obviously delivering it there. So I think obviously China's a huge market in terms of logistics and getting things conveniently. I would say it's very, very forward thinking, right? So there are many things that they can do that you can look to do here.
I think if I can like just summarize all that, that's kind of basically making our lives more convenient. Using tech, right? And that's what it's about, right? That's why we have iPhones, because we can pretty much manage your life on your phone, right?
Yeah.
So all this is like I think the world is heading that direction, and the next phase is really how do you kind of automate some of that without the human side, maybe without the person actually being in a queue for you.
Okay.
So it'll be super interesting.
That's really interesting. Because now we have to talk about this part, because you're in a lot of business meetings, so this is actually a great chance to start talking about your watches.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, you're not like a typical Silicon Valley guy where they generally wear one iWatch. You're quite more classical. So I'd love to hear your taste in watches. Has being in the Silicon Valley scene changed your perspective?
Sure. I forgot this is a watch podcast.
Yeah,
We're talking about so many different topics. Yeah, it's interesting. So when I go to San Francisco, back to our office, and look at the watches that people are wearing, I actually don't see a lot of Apple Watches. I see either no watches or like Panerais and maybe a more standard Rolex, nothing crazy. And then there are some guys who wear some really insider stuff. So I've seen Grand Seikos back 4 years ago, right, when I first went to San Francisco. I was like, that's really quite interesting because you don't see a lot of those. And then some people wearing, independent brands that you see, like FP Journe, and not too many, but you see them flying around everywhere. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that's because they're like sick and tired because they make this stuff? So they're like, I face this every day. I don't really want to. If Alex, restaurant business, you're not going to go and order noodles, right? Because you make that every single day on rice, right? You probably don't want to keep seeing it.
I think that might be right. There's also this culture of just carrying your laptops around everywhere. Like you always have your laptop in your backpack and everything's there. So I don't know if you need another screen.
I think we could all do with less screens.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a good point. So I'm actually more curious to your watch beginning days. So what was your first watch?
I think it was. So it looked exactly like a Submariner, but it wasn't the Submariner. It was, I think, from the Argos catalogue, and I think it was a Seconda.
Do people even still remember what Argos is?
I know.
No,
Actually, does it still exist? Because
Does it still
It does
exist?
in fucking Coventry.
Wow.
Just
in Coventry.
Okay, so let's explain. So Argos is this massive book, yeah? I mean, the book is huge. And you basically look down the catalogue, you write it down on another piece of paper, you give it to this checkout counter, and then they find the product and give it to you.
It's the equivalent of basically going to someone on a service desk at a warehouse
Yeah.
and just getting them to basically what you've told them on the paper, go and get it. Pretty much.
That's right. So that was your first watch?
Yeah, I used to almost wait for the new Argos catalogue to come out, right?
Wow.
Yeah, when you was a kid, you got
It's
nothing to do.
hardcore.
Seriously.
It was so good.
Pick for and go, what should you like? I play games with my sister. I was like,
what
what do you pick?
Now he's talking about it. When, Chinese kids used to get together because their families knew each other, right? So you're stuck together. And then you kind of got the Argos catalogue out, right?
It's great.
And do you know what? Can you remember?
I do.
You used to flick through right to the back.
Yeah.
That's where the toys were. That's where the computer games were, right? And we're like, this is wicked. This is wicked. All that kind of like adult stuff was like gardening stuff, the kitchen stuff. Boring. Let's just go straight to the back.
But it's such a wealth of information. It had everything, literally. And then I would circle stuff that I would like to save up for. I don't know if you guys did that.
I just used to dog ear.
Okay, yeah. All of it on that page.
And there was Woolworths as well. That was I prefer Woolworths and Argos. just for the fact that I can see what I want. Because
Oh,
sometimes
I only went to Woolworths for the sweets.
no, but Argos is Argos is a
Thicker
bit
mix.
tricky. No,
Thicker
because
mix was pretty legendary
It was
down there.
pretty good. Yeah.
no, because Argos is a bit tricky because you look at the picture and you're like, wow, it's massive, and then you order it, and then comes a really tiny toy, and you think that's rubbish. That's not what I wanted. Whereas Woolworths, you get to see the product. But anyway, okay, so we're digressing. So I'm curious about like your first serious watch.
First serious was probably a Rolex Submariner actually,
Okay.
and the reason why was because my Seconda looked so much like a Rolex Submariner, and I just thought this is great. And then actually, so this won't be a popular topic for watch lovers, but I went to Hong Kong on holiday. I go every year, I guess, at the time, and you kind of see these fake watches around in like the ladies' market in Mongkok. So back then, really young. Didn't have money. So actually I did buy a few fake watches.
Yeah.
And actually that is probably what got me into watches
Yeah.
in some ways, in a really odd way, right? Because I love them.
No, I don't think it is odd.
Mm.
Because the main thing is to get into watches is have something on your wrist. And also, watches are kind of an aspirational product, right? I'm not condoning fake watches. Right? I'm not saying, you should do that, right? But I can understand why that lit the fire for you to get whatever you then got in the future, right?
Yeah, I remember very clearly what I got actually from like the ladies' market. I got it was a Daytona black dial. It was a Submariner. I got a GMT Coke bezel.
Okay.
I got a really badly made Navitimer, a Breitling Navitimer.
So all the classics.
All the classics. Got a Frank Muller, of course.
Did you buy everything in one go?
Almost.
Okay.
I was like,
I had to,
right? You had
he
to.
built his collection.
Like, I get 4 of these watches, give me a discount, That's what it's about.
It was cheap enough to do that, yeah. But no, I had a dealer. I had like this lady who I used to go to. She was my go-to person. And every kind of 6 months or 12 months when I came back to Hong Kong, I used to go to her and say, "Hey, what new stuff do you have?" And you had to be quite discerning
Of course, yeah.
because she had some bad stuff,
Yeah.
like really badly made stuff,
Yeah.
and then really well made
They
stuff.
categorize it as like triple A and all this
That's
kind
right.
of standard, right? Yeah.
That's right. So that's what got me into the Submariner, because I realized when I got all these fake watches, it wasn't a lot, it was like maybe 6 or 7 of them. I actually kept coming back to the Submariner. Didn't matter what else I had, it was a Submariner. And so I went to Switzerland on graduation. I went to Zurich to see a friend, and I went to Bukhara. And at the time, you could actually walk to the store and get a Submariner. Like, this is I wish I got something else. I wish I got a Daytona or something. But I walked into the store, got a Daytona, and the lady said, because I wasn't sure, it was quite a lot of money at the time, and I had to call the bank to extend my credit, I remember, because my credit card only went to about £2,000 or something. I think it was about £4,000 at the time, so I had to double the credit.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So I had to literally call my bank outside, and I said to the lady, can you keep it for me for the day? I'll come back for it. And she said, I can only keep it for 30 minutes. and this is my first experience with buying a luxury watch. I was like, that's insane. Like, who's going to buy it in 30 minutes? So I said, that's fine. Thinking in the back of my mind, no one's going to buy it. So I came back. I was with a friend. Shout out to Ruth. So she and I walked around the block, and we went back 30 minutes later, and I decided, yes, I'll get it. There was a guy sitting there waiting to see if I would come back. And if I didn't come back, she would sell to this guy. Whoa. And I was like, wow, that's my first exposure to, I guess, the power of Rolex and Submariners. So, it's a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I didn't. Well, I mean, Rolex is well sought after, but even back then, that's quite intense.
Yeah, it was just intense seeing this guy wait for me to come back.
What year was this?
So I graduated in 2003. So that's probably 2003 or 4, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
I think. I have to go back to the receipt.
Okay.
I've kept all the receipts in the
No, 'cause I went into the Rolex store for a Rolex Submariner in 2000 and must have been about 2009, 2010, and they were still readily accessible. Like, I could just go there. I wasn't actually afraid of someone picking it up. Yeah, but it was still okay to get.
Yeah. Was that in Hong Kong?
No, that was in England.
Oh,
That was in
okay.
Northampton.
Interesting.
Probably there's not many buyers down there. That's why.
Yeah. I've always thought about doing a trip to small towns and villages.
Right, to try and get, because you think you're going to get preferential treatment because the market's not so big. Yeah,
Right.
Thought about that.
If you have thought
You aren't the
about
only
it,
person who thinks like that. I
Yeah.
tell you.
Trick of the trade doesn't work. So I'm curious. So where did your taste start to evolve? So after Submariner, then you
Yeah.
went over to like start beginning collecting like APs, you got
Yeah.
Hon Ngs and Pateks.
Yeah. So I kept the Submariner on my wrist 10 years straight.
Okay.
Wow.
No change. And I think living in the UK, you don't feel like you need
Yeah,
to
that's right,
have
yeah.
more, right? And actually, that's a fancy watch in the UK.
Yeah.
So yeah, no need to change. I was just busy with work. And then I lived in the Middle East for 5 years, almost 5 years, working for Latham Watkins, but mainly for the Qatari government. And so in the Middle East, obviously people are very into their watches. And I had a boss who was from Jordan, great guy, and he had an really good collection of watches. But at the time, big watches were in.
Yeah.
So it's all about the offshore. It's all about the Hublots,
Panerais.
Panerais, right? So I got into big watches. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And so my Jordanian boss was actually quite flashy. He had multiple cars. He had a G65. He had a Ferrari 612. He had
He's
like
getting me into this now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's getting me into
really
this.
really good cars. And I used to say, and as a lawyer, that's quite flashy, right? Because we're normally quite a
Low profile.
Low profile. So I used to say to him, why have you got so many flashy cars and flashy watches? And he said to me, one thing that I will never forget. He said, in the Middle East, you almost have to be at the same level as your clients for them to respect you. So I don't know whether that applies in other industries, but for him to garner respect, I guess, because you're just a service provider at the end of the day, right? But if they see you at the same level, they respect you and they treat you differently. And so he was ultimately very successful with getting the biggest clients. So that might be true. But
So you basically had a sub and then went to all these big watches.
Because of that reason, basically, yeah?
Well, then I didn't buy until I went to Hong Kong. So I had that in my mind.
By the way, did you have a date or
Date.
non-date? You had the date.
Date, yeah. I love date windows, by the way.
Said a lot about you.
Well,
some watch collectors that listening to this will think, I don't think I could be friends with this person.
I think date windows are the most useful complication, quote unquote,
Quote unquote, right?
for me.
Right.
And we've had many discussions
Yes,
about this.
yeah, I mean, Hon and I, this is the one thing, no, we agree on a lot of things. There's one thing that Hon and I disagree on. I don't like date windows.
What day of the week? What day is it today?
I have no idea.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So so you mentioned that point that you have to kind of wear the same watch as your client or the person you're meeting. So when you go to these business meetings, I'm assuming you don't have any problems with wearing a high horology watch, or you rather still be low profile in your business meetings.
Yeah, I think as a lawyer, I actually didn't want to wear high horology watches. I think that sent the wrong message that maybe we were charging too much or too successful. But now in my current role, no concerns whatsoever. Although I would probably hesitate to wear something like a Rolex or a Nautilus, something quite well known now. Maybe something low key on a leather strap is probably better. Yeah,
That's a good point. Okay, so now we have to talk about the watch industry as a whole, because you're in the disruptive industry. And so the watch industry, I'm curious to see, how would you want to disrupt that, or how do you think it may be disrupted?
Yeah, good question. So when I think about disruption, so this is all the things I picked up while being at Uber. I don't think Uber started out with its aim to disrupt. I think it started with the aim of giving people what they want. And that started obviously in the US and then became more of a global thing. Like
Without
people
also giving to people what they want without that market actually realizing that this is what I want, right?
Yeah, in some
Because
ways.
you were innovative.
Yeah.
Disruptive and innovative aren't necessarily they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
And obviously it was very innovative. It turned out to be disruptive, right?
That's right. I think the other variable is that we're typically put against traditional businesses like a taxi business.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Steve Jobs actually made the same point, right? He said that you can give people what they don't know
Yeah.
they already want.
Yeah.
And that takes obviously a genius, frankly, someone who actually vision, dedication and commitment to the direction. So back to your original question, watch industry, traditional as well, I think.
Super traditional.
Yeah. For me, I think when I think about what collectors want or what people want, I think people want a little bit of individuality, right? So if I'm wearing my watch, the reason why I don't wear my Submariner much anymore is because in Hong Kong, everyone has a Submariner, right? And you want something that's individual to you, something that suits your style. And I feel like the watch industry at the moment has resisted on tailor making or bespoking watches.
Or adding personalization to certain things, right?
Correct.
Perhaps it doesn't even have to be on the watch. It could be on the strap.
Could be.
That comes with the watch, right?
Correct. It could be very simple things. I mean, you would have to disrupt, quote unquote, the manufacturing process, the kind of the making of the watch, and maybe you have to introduce new and disruptive practices in that process that they have now. But that's only a good thing because ultimately that's what people want, right?
So what you're saying is, actually, I think that the luxury watch industry, in terms of personalization, making you feel special, right? They do it more on the service level, like marketing side, right? They might invite you to a dinner, all this stuff. What you're saying is actually more product related. I would like to see it more on the product. Are you actually bothered about that experiential feeling special from the brand, or would you just...
Yes, man, this is a good question. I actually don't feel super special when I go to a luxury watch brand.
Okay, why?
Because I feel like once they've sold you the product, I don't feel like there's much more after that. There's dinners and there's invitations, but actually what I'm after is experiences and after service. So, I buy an expensive watch. I would like to... So in the car industry is a great example, right? So you buy a car, your car needs to be serviced. There's usually good service centers. They may loan you a car. They may kind of give you quotations and give you options as to what you can do, and you choose what to do and what not to do. I feel like in the watch industry that is very kind of unclear. Other than Rolex, Rolex does a good job in that. I feel like other brands are a little bit unclear and hazy.
What do you mean, like when you said also experiences?
So it's a really good example. I bought a Gerard Perregaux, and people are like, "Oh, Gerard Perregaux," but I think they're very underrated. So I bought a Gerard Perregaux. And
who says that? Does someone say that in this room?
Yeah, there's one. Yeah.
Long.
I've been silent here.
Yeah, what are your views on GP? Anyway,
Contact later.
But yeah, so I sent the watch back. So they can't service it in Hong Kong. They have a official kind of service agent who said we can't service this because it's too complicated. It was a world timer chronograph. So they had to send it back to Switzerland. And I said, oh great, that's fine, I'll pay for it. But can GP like send some pictures of when they're servicing it? I'd like to see kind of what's happening to the movement, and I just want to be part of that process. And I got the watch back, nothing, just the watch back. It wasn't even like case.
Take it, here you go.
Yeah, there was no notes, there's no thank you, and we appreciate the custom. And I paid a lot of money for that.
Thanks for the money.
Yeah, none of that.
Just like thanks and then bye.
Basically. And I just think that there's a lot more that the watch industry can do.
Because I was actually thinking, I actually thought that what you're saying is actually, don't want to say basic level of expectation of service, right? But you would have expected that, right? Expected something. And I was actually thinking when you said experience, more like, let's say, Doxa watches or like Rolex subs, right? Let's say you buy that watch, you become a part of this community, and Rolex then organize. I'm sure you're happy to pay for a bit as well, but they might subsidize or just make it more convenient for a whole group of you to go diving.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah,
experiential. You get to use your watch, you really bond with it, you understand it, and then you group of collectors that probably do love watches.
Yeah,
and they might then kind of slowly psychologically influence you to buy more watches, right? So I actually thought you meant that. But
I mean, I think that's the next level. I feel like that would be somewhere where like Hon Ng might go to. So you're wearing a datograph. Yeah. I love the datograph, but I never get a chance to use my chronograph actually on my datograph because it's a 30-minute counter, relatively short, and I never race really, but I'd
Yeah.
like to. So it'd be cool if Lang said, "Hey, as a valid customer, here's an experience. Of course, maybe it's subsidized, but you can take, you can go with 30 other collectors to XYZ location to drive around and try out your chronograph."
But I would, for
That'd
me,
be pretty
for
cool.
Langer, you touched on Langer. Sorry, I know you want to come in
go
here.
ahead.
Is I'd love it if they just arranged a trip for me to see the Berlin Wall or something like this. Right, very strong German essence. Obviously, part of the reason why that brand actually had a hiatus is because of what happened in that country, and then subsequently for that wall to come down, and then Walter Langer doing what he did. That's very powerful, I feel. Yeah, so I would like something like that.
The thing that you spoke about customer service actually got me thinking about something. So you know how within the watch industry you poach people from within the industry. So the CEO moves to this company goes to that company. Da, da. I was actually thinking, right? Imagine you actually, because it kind of reminded me of my first job. And then I was in banking, and then when you first start off, they give you a portfolio of customers. And then every week you have a meeting, and then you basically have to report, this customer is not moving money, this person's not doing anything. And then you kind of curate your customer. But you're responsible for these 10 customers, right? So obviously you're very concerned with this 10 and how it makes you look in the office, right? I think right now, like with the sales, they obviously have a list of customers, but the list is so big. But if you have to be so responsible, like, if you have a weekly meeting and they're like, what was the follow-up on this customer? Why haven't you sent them flowers? Why haven't you texted them this week? Then they will have to take responsibility. Then they're going to step up because they're embarrassed of what they look like.
So what you're saying, they're not accountable right now?
They're not accountable. So they have to actually hire people from outside of the watch industry into upper management to manage the salespeople like that.
I think there's a few things. One is not being accountable, and two, I don't think that the watch brands know how to make collectors feel special, because I'm not convinced that they know what collectors actually feel like.
I agree.
But that's why I'm saying it's obviously not working, the system.
Yeah.
So you got to disrupt it, right? Hire somebody else with new ideas from another industry.
Yeah.
Okay, so on that segment there, because we touched on two parts there, but I want to go back one step, and that was the chronograph bit, because you actually said you don't really use your chronograph. So I'm curious, like, how important is these complication movements nowadays, or they're just for show? World timers, complications like chronographs, minute repeaters. I'm not going to go to dinner and just go, okay, listen to this, guys, and just flick my.
I use my minute repeater all the time.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I have to pick my minute repeater first. I've got 10 in the safe, All
right, calm down. All right.
Yeah.
What are they? From your iPhone soundtrack.
Hey, but minute repeaters is a really good one. I mean, like, we're not all in the market for one, right? But, we'd all like one probably.
Yeah.
But imagine being able to customize the sound. That'd be so cool.
Maybe, yeah.
But no, to your question, it's a really fair question. I think the chronograph, it just evokes I don't know,
Nostalgia?
Nostalgia, a passion for the design as well. Because I don't know, having those subdials, it makes it look quite masculine in a way in some of the watches. But in all honesty, you don't really use it that much, to be honest.
Well, I've seen it once used quite interestingly. I sent a video out to the group. It was Walter Roll, who used to be kind of like an amazing racing driver for Porsche. And he used it once, and I thought that was cool. But apart from that 1 second, that was it. I don't think there was much use to it.
I just think the movement looks cool.
Yeah, mainly
most
aesthetics.
chronograph movements, when you flip them around in that open back, you think, wow, that looks really amazing compared to your standard time-only movements, right? So just from that, and actually how historically hard it was to do, obviously, you don't use it now, but I still have that respect for mankind that they actually devoted this much time to do this.
Yeah. I actually, so I have a few chronographs, and I try to find ways to use them. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm
boiling
exactly
the egg.
same. Like, because you already bought it, so you're like, I gotta maximize this.
Right.
I'm gonna find excuses to use it.
For you, it's good because you can
I use it for my
maximize food.
I do face masks. So I do 15 minutes face mask. Okay, I used it. Okay, I'm done for today. Like, I'm getting my bang for the buck kind of thing.
That's good. And you probably have a Speedmaster, a lot of you, right? So that's great because it measures, I think, 12 hours, right? So I actually go on flights and start my chronograph when I sleep. When I sleep. Not
Oh,
when
to
it,
figure out how long you've
Oh,
slept.
that's
Yeah.
quite cool.
yeah, and actually it's pretty good.
That is a very good way to use it.
Yeah, so that's good.
Oh, well, on that note, that ends the first part of this segment. So stay tuned for the second part with Hon, and hope you see, hear from
Yeah, I
you very
really
soon.
enjoyed that, Hon.
Thank you, Hon.
Thank
We
you.
look
First
forward to
part.
having you back.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
for having
Thank
me.
you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Waiting List podcast. Hit the subscribe button, and the next episode will come straight to your phone as soon as it's ready. Whilst I'm here, please remember to leave a nice review and follow us on Instagram at the Waiting List Podcast.